Another month gone by means another big change coming to Langrisser. You already know what it is. And I'm actually really looking forward to it. But first, I'm gonna be going over the new characters before we get into all the other big stuff. We got Mom. That's right, get out of here, Azusa. And I don't mean disrespect to the one and only best Angelina here. Kaguya. I've actually been very hyped for her for a very long time, and I actually really like her design. Kaguya has a mage and a holy class that's part of the princess, strategy, and mythical faction. Her talent powered the universe. Any allies within 1 block at 3 stars, 2 blocks at 4 and 5 stars, 3 blocks at 6 stars will increase her int from 10% at 3 stars up to 20% when she's at 6 stars. At the start of the battle, she places 2, 3, or 4 terrain effects, and those numbers depends on what star level she's at. Within 2 rings of her that last for 1 turn. And they are randomized from Ino, Shika, and Cho. If any ally moves onto this tile, they get a random buff, and it will give Kaguya a special buff depending on what kind of tile that they land on. Ino, Shika, and Cho cannot be immunized or be dispelled and can be stacked up to 3 times. And her special terrain effect will be needed for one of her skills. That's called Sleep Card. It's a 1-cost skill that has 3 different skill options. One of them being Tanzaku, which consumes 1 of each stack of Ino, Shika, and Cho that lets you randomly get 1 stack of either of those 3 that lasts for 1 turn. Her second skill option, Tain, also consumes 1 each of those stacks that gives her damage dealt increased by plus 20% and her equipment resonant activation increases by 100%. Okay, so let's say you're using Dimensional Jewel on her, right? And you use the skill to attack right after. Dimensional Jewel is an equipment that has a 30% chance to reduce a skill cooldown by 1. But this skill will turn that 30% into 100%, and this skill lasts for 2 turns. Then her last skill option, Hikari, which actually consumes 3 stacks of each of those 3. It gives a command effect whereas all allies have the equipment resonance activation rate increases by 20% for 2 turns. This skill has a 1 turn cooldown and she will gain plus 2 range for 1 turn and is able to act again with movement equal to the number she had left remaining before using this skill. And buffs on her do not lose their turn duration, and the special buffs go in the order from Ino, Shika, and Cho from left to right. I will explain in further detail about the skill in just a little bit. Her second skill, Jade Toad Arithmetic. It's a 2-cost skill that has a 3-turn cooldown, which attacks an enemy dealing 1.5 times magic damage, and her crit rate increases by 50% and can heal 50% of damage dealt after battle. Honestly, not a bad skill. Sounds pretty good. Here we have her 3C skill, Winning Hand. It has a passive effect for every Ino, Shika, and Cho stack she has. This skill has its crit rate increased by 6%. It's an attacking skill that attacks an enemy, dealing 1.7 times magic damage, and before battle, she inflicts 2 undispellable debuffs that last for 1 turn. After battle, she gets damage taken reduced by 20%, that also lasts for 1 turn, then can move 3 blocks right after. Now, Kaguya definitely wants to stay close by her teammates. That int increase is really great, and also her sleep card Tanzaku really helps her regain an extra buffs if she really needs it. Tain is obviously much better for attacking, and Hikari may kinda sound like a weird one, but think about this real quick. She's always going to be sticking close to your teammates, right? And if you're a slow player, especially in PvP, if you're the type to play it really slow and mostly focus on defense, this one really isn't that bad at all. Let's say your healer has like 10 years real, right? And they get attacked by like Epsilon or whatever. They have a better chance of activating this to help them probably and hopefully survive. Same thing goes for your tanks as well, if they're using Forbidden Battle Armor, Bloodline Armor, or Aeolus. All her other skills she brings allows her to be either in a single target attacker or an AoE attacker, or you can really mix it up, like bring Arcane Blast. Then her 3C, which is actually really amazing. So if she ever wants to go away from her teammates just to attack, she can really easily do that thanks to that skill allowing her to move back again. But it's not going to be really easy to rush with her. Caroline. She has both Cavalry Path for her class and is part of the Legion of Glory, Empire, and Strategy faction. Her talent, Anti-Gravity Engine. Her defense is increased by 5% up to 20% at 6 stars. For every 1 block that she moves, her attack is increased by 1% to 5% at 3 stars, 2% to 10% at 4 stars, 3% to 15% at 5 stars, and 4% to 20% at 6 stars. After she deals damage, enemies within 1 block at 3 stars, or it will be 2 blocks at 4, 5, and 6 stars, have the movement increase revert to decrease effect that lasts for 1 turn. So if the enemy has like +2 mobility from like their breeze enchant or whatever, and if Caroline does damage at or nearby the enemies, essentially they will go back to having their regular number of mobility. Crazy enough, she's actually an AoE attacker, so let's take a look at it. Gravity Surge is a 2-cost skill that has a 3-turn cooldown that attacks multiple enemies within 2 blocks, dealing 0.36 times physical AoE damage that dispels 2 buffs from the enemies. Then her 1C skill, Turbocharge, that has a 2-turn cooldown which gives her +2 mobility, damage though increased by 10% when attacking, and AoE range increased by 1 range. That cannot be dispelled, that lasts for 3 turns. Honestly, I kinda mess with this skill. With Caroline mostly built for offense, this skill really helps her out quite a bit for her role. And lastly, her 3C skill, Collapsing Lance, has a 6-turn cooldown that deals 0.4 times AoE physical damage to enemies within 2 blocks on any tiles within 2 block range. Then the terrain changes to Collapsing Lance. This tile will give a command effect where enemies within 2 blocks that are battling Caroline, their attack and int is reduced by 15%, and when moving outside of this terrain effect, you will use an additional mobility just to move onto this tile. So kinda like how Odious is, but his terrain effect really only applies to flyers and cavalry units. Before they attack or ending their turn, they take fixed damage based on, I think, the number of Caroline's mobility, up to 3.5 times of her attack. Her terrain effect can change other terrains as well, and she is able to move 4 blocks in a straight line right after using this skill. This terrain should almost always overwrite any others, so I think if even someone like Licorice does her AoE to change the terrain, Caroline's terrain won't be changed at all, except for, I think, probably Rosalia's. Sounds like Caroline is really gonna be doing a lot of damage, cause she does have a Strike Master class that gives her like 600 base attack when she's at 6 stars. Now, I haven't seen much gameplay of her since there's barely even some out there at all. But basically, you want to use the first turn to set her up, then the next turn is when you go full gun blazing when you're rushing with her. She's only ever going to be useful for rush box. You're not going to really be bringing any other skills besides her AoEs. The reason why she barely even ever gets used, or why you'll ever really see much gameplay of her at all, is because her range is just really terrible. Even the amount of attack that she can rack is just really isn't good enough sometimes. And I feel like that's her only main problem. Even if you use like Balance Blade to give her +4 AoE range in total, she's still gonna be missing out on quite a bit of damage, since her AoEs doesn't really do anything else that much. If her AoEs did something else, then yeah, I would see why not use Balance Blade on her, but other than that, she's actually really solid. She's actually gonna be really great for PvE if you don't have Leon, since she does bring good single target attacking skill, and her talent lets her boost her attack and defense. But Leon is still a bit better, since he can always move 3 blocks right after attacking. Next, we actually have some new equip. So first, let's take a look at the exclusive equipment. We have a headwood gear for Light of Genesis that's called Reincarnation Inscription. At level 50, HP is increased to 10%, and she can have an extra stack of Majestic Light. So that means she can have a total of 5 stacks instead of the usual 4 stacks she gets at 6 stars. For those who don't have her and is wondering what the heck that even is, basically every time she enters battle, she gains the special buffs that increases her int by 5%, and it increases her range for every 2 stacks of this. When triggering Act Again, buffs on her do not lose their turn duration. This is actually really good. So I would totally recommend picking this up if you have enough controllers to buy it. Then our second exclusive, which is an armor that's for Alpha, called Constructed Body Alpha EX. At max upgrade, it increases her HP and defense by 5% and gives +1 mobility. When she has either Amethyst Cover or Amethyst Shield and takes whatever corresponding type of damage based on what shield she has, it reflects 60% of damage taken, but if she has neither of those two, then her damage dealt is increased by +15%. So if she has Amethyst Cover and takes magic damage from that, allows her to take less damage from magic attacks, it will reflect 60% to the attacker. And the same would be applied to Amethyst Shield when she takes physical damage. This gear honestly makes Alpha pretty good. And I have seen CN players use her because of how good this one really is for PvP. It really makes her more versatile. In my opinion, I would recommend really going for Light of Genesis exclusive equipment if you have her, because that one I just feel like it's way much more better. Now we move on to the next equipment that's going to be on a banner that should happen 2 weeks after this update goes live. But I just want to say real quick that even if you don't plan on summoning on this equipment banner, these equipments will be added later on, a week after. So if you're lucky, hey, congrats. But let's go see what these equipments actually do. First, we have the Thxs new robe that has a chance of being crit reduced by 40%. And when attacked, there's a 30% chance to lower the enemy's damage dealt by 20% before entering battle that lasts for 2 turns. Second, we have Laws of Creation, that's an accessory which gives 8% in and when entering battle. When using a skill that has an advantage on the enemies, the damage dealt is increased by 10%. For the third one, we have Lurker's Piercer, which is a bow that gives 10% crit and 5% HP at max upgrade. And what it does is give +1 range only if your movement is 3 or less. Then the last equipment is a helmet called Demon Dragon's Gaze. And when being targeted from a range attack and entering battle, defense is increased by 15%. Now I'm just gonna say, the robe is probably the only good thing in this equipment banner. This robe is actually a much better version of the Thxs robe that we already have. And the fact that it can lower the attacker's damage dealt instead of having their damage taken reduced is honestly way better. The accessory can be alright, only if you don't have any other accessory. But the only person that would really benefit from this the most is Light of Genesis, since her 3C will always have an advantage against literally anything except for holy units, I believe. And the fact that her 3C can hit really hard says a lot. Now the bow is literally a godsend for you Omega users, only if you're not really using Breeze on him. This weapon is really gonna be amazing since Omega relies so much on crit. And when you're using his 3C, try to make sure you move just enough to where he has 3 or less mobility. Otherwise, he won't really get that +1 range. And the helmet is nothing too great, so there's really no need to go further into it. We got more coming from this update. We also have Alma's Confession, and we have Dimensional Expedition coming back. So make sure you get in a guild if you want some amazing rewards. But no, that's not all that's coming back. Oh no. The Golden Sea of Endless Voyage is coming back as well. This is everyone's favorite event, including mine as well, because it's just really fun to mess around using different type of team comps, and it's just really amazing seeing characters using the skills that they normally wouldn't have. And besides the random RNG BS, literally anyone at any level can beat this event. This should be out the next week after this update goes live. And we have one major adjustment being added. I say one major, but it's really nothing too great, which is the team save for the components. And what this means is that it will let you save the last component that you used from your last battle, so that you aren't always having to change it all the time. Other than that, it's just a few bug fixes. I feel like there's no need to really talk about that. But yeah, that's all that's coming from this event. So that's all I have for you guys. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more. And yeah, thanks for watching. Your fellow Z.